It's now 5 minutes after 7. This is Morning Express, and it's time for us to get into the state of the nation. Today, we're going to be looking at matters referendum. And let me start with the question that we had asked earlier on, and we had asked whether the referendum is what Kenya needs to fix Kenya. There are many things that we are ailing from, starting with the economy. There's the issue of corruption, there's governance issues, and some think or feel that the silver bullet that Kenya needs is a referendum in terms of changing the constitution. This is a constitution that, Constitution 2010, that we now have had for about 9 years, going to 10 years. And the question is that what is going to fix our ill country? Would like to find out what your take is on that. And let me just read some of the comments that have come through on that particular question. And just to give you, first of all, the poll results so far. The question is a referendum what Kenyans need for a positive change? So far, we have 43% of you saying yes and 57% of you saying no. But let me just read some of the comments that have come through. This guy, Ian, says definitely and no. We have Roost, who says the greed for power is driving those in higher positions to try pushing for referendum. Common Mwananchi is tired of current leadership. They don't represent their interests on the ground. Bure kabisa. We have Marshall Clashes, who says, nimevote no, but I am convinced that the framing might be wrong. We have Mark, who says that no, because the signatures, just like votes, will get rigged. Keep your answers coming. Those are just a few of what has come through, and I'll be reading them as we go along. Just a quick reminder of who we have in studio. We are joined by nominated Senator Rose Nyamunga and Honorable Didnamas Baraza, who's a member of Parliament for Kimilili. Thank you for joining us. And before we come to the panel and maybe find out what their take is and what they feel the direction should be, I'd like to first of all just hand over to Trix, who's going to give us some statistics and give us also, when we talk about a referendum, what exactly are we talking about? What is it that we are referring to, and what are some of the pointers that some of the leaders have given when we talk about a referendum? So, Trix.
Thank you, Michael. And of course, let's get to the basics and just find out what in the world is a referendum. In case you're sitting at home and you're wondering what this is basically a vote on a question that is posed to a people of a nation. For example, on whether some political issue that affects them, because at the end of the day, the people who are looking for a change or a shift, an amendment to the constitution, are doing so in order to shift the way the general direction of the country is. And of course, the general vote by the electorate on a single political question, which has been referred to them for direct decision. And of course, this depends on what they are actually, how far or how deep this matter is and how it affects them and how they feel about it. And of course, in Kenya, we are having various factions that are pushing for a referendum. We have the Building Bridges Initiative, and the Building Bridges Initiative is pushing for the expansion of the executive. Of course, the expansion of the executive to decentralize the role of the executive. And of course, it also is calling for the strengthening of devolution through enhanced allocation. And this is a similar one, of course, because to the other, the Punguza Mizigo initiative, because they're looking to bring the development down to the grassroots. And if revenue allocation is increased to at that level, and therefore this works for the good of development, and of course to end ethnic antagonism and divisive political competition. We know that the Building Bridges initiative came after the handshake, and of course the call is to have this be a ripple effect, not just the executive or the top political leaders in the country shaking hands and having unity, but of course to have unity trickle down to the grassroots. And of course this initiative is calling for that, but before that they want a referendum that will help push for this agenda. Then we have building the establishment of a national ethos. Of course, this has to do with dealing with matters of corruption and issues that, of course, affect how various state agencies, how our government, how our leaders are handling matters. And we know that we are dealing with a lot of cases in the courts. That we have the DPP making headlines across the standard on various fronts because of certain issues that point to a fact that we do not have a national ethos. And of course, safety and security issues such such as terrorism, local crime, and of course we have elimination of corruption, one of the biggest disasters in this country that is encompassing both the grassroots level mwananchi all the way up to some top executives that have been named and shamed in various cases that, funny enough, do not even end up in prosecutions in our courts. And of course this is a big issue that is backtracking development, or the goal of development in the country, and therefore the Building Bridges initiative is calling for this to be a matter that would be dealt with if that referendum goes through. Let's move forward and see what next we have. Punguza Mizigo initiative is something that has made the headlines a lot this week because of that, the million signatures that were successfully collected by a Third Way Alliance, the party led by Ekuro Aukot, who is calling for a referendum. But under his call, he has a different set of points that he wants to push for, and that is a 7-year presidential term, which is something that will be quite different from what we have, which is a 2-term, 10 years for the presidency. And of course, we have MPs reduced from 416 to 147. Now, this is a particular touchy issue, and some of the opponents to the referendum said that if Ekuro Aukot wants this to go through, he might want to scrape this one off because it's a very sensitive matter, and it has to do with merging certain constituencies and borders and what have you. And with the sort of ethnic tensions that we have in the country, sometimes touching on counties and what we have, the sort of representation that we have, and by reducing it would mean that we have to actually expand the scope with which some legislators are entitled or are given. Then we'll have a bigger problem if the local people at the grassroots level are not for that. Then we have increased county revenue from 35% to 15%. Now, some of the people that might be for this would be the people in the county governments, because they might be given more allocation, and this might make it easier for them to implement some of the dealings that they have to do, especially in terms of corruption and helping the grassroots level mwananchi lead a better life and the local economies. But this can only be successful if the matter of corruption is handled. But of course, this is something that has been lauded by some of the proponents of the Punguza Mizigo initiative. And then life sentences for corruption culprits. So corruption is, of course, a major issue in the country, like we said, and it's also featuring here, just like in the other building initiative, Building Bridges initiative, and it's one of the agendas of the Punguza Mizigo initiative that has actually gotten 1 million votes supporting a call for a referendum. It also calls for the abolishment of nominations in the county assemblies and senators and Senate, and of course to replace CDF with a ward fund. And then it calls for the Senate elevated from upper house with veto powers. Now, this is very important, of course, but of course it also points to an article that was released by the Standard yesterday that says the direction in which this initiative, building Punguza Mizigo initiative or the referendum takes, has a lot to do with whether MCAs and the Senate actually agree with some of the proponents that are being suggested on both sides. Now, we have the proponents saying the result. Proponents say it will result in a unified country, because if we're dealing with corruption, if we're giving more allocations to the county, and of course if we're handling matters that are dividing us and making sure we are closer, like the Building Bridges initiative is pushing for, then of course at the end of the day we'll have more unity and cohesion in the country now, and it also will result in a better Kenya for the future generations. And this is something that President Uhuru Kenyatta has said, that this is good because they want to leave behind the leaders currently a Kenya that will be good for future generations and not have them inheriting the ills that are plaguing us right today. And of course it's going to promote inclusivity as a way, as something that we all want, because every faction, every area in the country, every ethnic group wants to be included in all the dealings of the government and the initiatives that are supposed to lead to development and better economic prospects for everyone. Now, the opponents say the problems facing the country are non-constitutional. For example, when you're talking about unity, they say that we cannot legislate some matters such as unity. You cannot force it, you cannot put it into law. And of course, certain matters such as corruption, there are already systems that are meant to deal with corruption. And amending the constitution, you can amend it all you want, but you cannot make it, you cannot force it to be implemented in reality. So they say that this might not be the best way to approach such matters such as corruption, such as seeking unity, or such as dealing with ethnic tensions or ethnic or divisive politics that we have to deal with every other year or every election year. So this is something that they say is moot. It won't help in any way. Then many of the problems cannot be legislated, as I've said, and then there's a risk of flaring ethnic tension, and this has to do with the borders and the reducing of the constituencies from all the way to 147. The opponents to this say that this is a very touchy subject, and if you touch on that, you might actually bring up issues that we had solved by allocating this particular areas of the country or certain counties or constituencies the representation that they had been calling for, and therefore if we do away with that, then we'll have a much bigger problem in our hands. And that is all we have. Over to you, Michael, for more on this subject.
Thank you very much, Trix, and well broken down as to what the referendum is, some of those who support it, why they feel that it is time for Kenya to go for a referendum, and also those who feel that the referendum is not the way to go. And that's a discussion. A quick reminder of our question today, and we'd like to find out what your thoughts are. We encourage you to participate in the conversation, and the question that we are asking is the referendum what Kenyans need for positive change? Is that what we need for positive change? And some of the things that, of course, we'd like to highlight as a country is the question of ethnicity and, corruption, and also governance, which have become a problem in this country. Let's now come back to the panel, and I'll start with you, Honorable Senator Rose Nyamunga, on your thoughts on, first of all, let's just start maybe by posing the same question. Do you feel a referendum is something that Kenya needs? Is that the silver bullet that we need to solve our problem, our illness as Kenya?
Yeah, talking of referendum, first of all, what I know is that is the feeling of most Kenyans. It is also my feeling that we need a referendum. And the most important thing is the two leaders, that is the president and Honorable Raila Odinga, they put the BB in place, BBI.
BBI, the
yes,
Building Bridges Initiative.
Yes, this BBI is what we should actually be waiting for as Kenyans, because we want anything or everything that we do as leaders to come from the people. And the BBI team it has been going around the counties and collecting views from the communities to find out exactly what they want. So as a leader, I may sit here and say, yes, I need the referendum, and I think that is the best way forward, and I have my reasons for that. But is it coming from the people? So if we wait and see the results or the views that will be coming, is it going to point to the leaders that actually this is what Kenyans need? Okay. So to me, that is number one. Number two, as a person, I think we need the review, because there is an argument that unity does not count, is not a constitutional thing. Unity is a constitutional thing. Because why is there disunity? There's a disunity because some people are not content with the constitutional, with the leadership. And leadership to me is a constitutional thing. Some people feel that they are left out. Why are they left out? They are not in the leadership. They are not sharing the cake the way they should share it. So that is a constitutional. That could be brewing the disunity that we see. That we have in the country. That we have in the country. So to me, all these things are constitutional. Okay. But as a person, I think we need it, because even when we were doing the constitution, there's a big percentage, I think 10 to 20%, that did not believe in the constitution. Correct. And because of that, people agreed, because when we were doing that constitution, people were pegging the constitution to individuals. And I think that's where we also make mistakes. When we are making laws, even right now in parliament, I should not make any law in the Senate because I'm in the Senate. Because how long am I going to be in the Senate? Correct. Or because I'm a governor or I'm in the National Assembly. So when we are doing the law for this nation, we should remove leadership and then see, is this the right law for the country and over a period of time? Is it going to benefit the future? So that is how we should be looking at it. So when we were doing the constitution, there was a lot of fight. We don't want this because we think somebody is looking for, like right now, we are looking at the constitution and some people are saying it is there to create jobs for specific people. Specific people, yeah. Right. So in my view, I think that is not the way we should go. Okay. There is a percentage that was left. That percentage, we should be sober enough.
But the question then might be, Mheshimiwa, is this the right time to do that? Because some of the issues that we're having, for instance, corruption, and just the question of governance, is it down to the constitution or is it down to the implementers of the constitution, such that if they implemented it to the letter as it is supposed to be, then some of these problems would not have them now?
Maybe there are structures that may not allow them to implement it to the letter. So those structures should be there. And healing this unity and all that we are thinking about. So I don't want to think of individuals, but I want an expanded government that most people will feel included.
Okay.
So that alone, and the fact that we left some bit of it hanging and we said we will look at it. That means that we didn't do it to the thoroughly.
There's some things that were left with question marks that we need to be revisited.
Now we are now sober enough, and we should be sober enough to handle them.
Okay. Honorable Didmas Baraza, your thoughts on whether the silver bullet for Kenya is a referendum?
Yes, I understand that Kenyans need a referendum. But the question is when and how. And to me, what the BBI is doing is just neither here nor there. What we need to do as Kenyans is to first have what I may call a constitutional symposium, where we analyze chapter by chapter the current constitution, identifying areas that needs to be looked into, and even before we get there, we should try to put down problems that bedevil this country, beginning from social, economic, and political, and find out whether these problems can be cured by a constitutional amendment or not.
Although, allow me to just interrupt a little bit, because I think some of those things have already been done. When we look at, for instance, the TJRC report, the Ndungu report, those are reports that were put on the table to try and, first of all, identify some of the problems that we're going through. For instance, the historical injustices. Therefore, sitting down again to go through them would be more or less repeating the same documents that we've not implemented.
No problem. Then if some documents exist, then they can be put together in a structured manner. Because you see now, for example, the problem that our counties are facing now, they have nothing to do with the constitution. The economic plunder of this country that we are experiencing has got nothing to do with the change of the constitution. The biggest problem that this country faces is corruption. NYS 1, NYS 2, we hear money is lost in everywhere, and I don't think if a referendum is going to cure this kind of problems. And we also have two levels of government. We have the county government and the national government. So I think, in my view, that if we want to expand the executive at the national level, then you should do the same at the county level. You know. So we should look into this matter soberly. Let us not being driven by political emotions and short gains by certain individuals.
Which is why somebody might argue this is the right time to have the discussion, because currently the political temperatures seem to be, somehow at an all-time low. So this would be a good time to have this discussion. If then we're going for the referendum, it is with a sober mind, not because we are pressured like we were pressured during the time of creating the position of Prime Minister. It was because of trouble that had to be created.
It's not just a matter of saying we go to the referendum because the political temperatures are low, but what the guiding principle should be. Have we first understood what needs to be changed in the constitution? Have we agreed on the various chapters that needs amendment? Definitely we have not agreed. We need to spend more than 1 year going chapter by chapter on this constitution, identifying areas that needs to be repealed, and so that Kenyans are now going to be able to understand that we have this particular problem that we are facing because of limited executive, because these parastatals are of no use, and therefore they will provide tangible and meaningful solutions on whether we want to remove them or not.
Okay. All right.
Now, let me just add something on that. Now, I think this is the time that we want to fix Kenya. We want to fix Kenya in terms of constitution, and we want to fix it in terms of corruption so that we start a new Kenya. So, in my view, the time is ripe. When the leaders have joined and they are reading from one script that we must fix Kenya, we must make it more peaceful, we must give Kenya the right and a proper constitution, and where we went wrong, we can fix it now.
We can fix it.
Yes.
All right, and then the question might be, is the constitution really the problem? And the reason why I ask this is, for instance, one of the things you brought up, Honorable Senator Nyamunga, is the question of some people feeling left out. Now, the crafters of the constitution envisaged by having devolved units, everybody is somewhat taken care of. We even have division of revenue, which has already been given, may not be being implemented. And my point here being, if the devolved units and the county governments were effective and were doing the job that they're supposed to do, the question of equality would be dealt with, meaning we don't actually need to go to the referendum yet.
We need to go to the referendum because even if we have the two units of government, the national and the county governments, and the allocation is done. Now, the problem we have in Dora, that is the revenue allocation, that what goes to the counties and what goes to the national government. The budget that we have now is 3.1 trillion. What is supposed to go to the county governments, the national government was 314. So if you look at 314 versus 3.1 trillion, now the eyes are still, you see now, the eyes are still on this big money and the way it is being spent and the way it is now. Some areas are still left out because this big money that is left at the national level, it is up to the executive to decide how it is going to use the balance. So that is still causing a problem.
And how would an expanded, for instance, an expanded executive deal with that?
If
because
we
it's still the same thing. The
if we
metrics remain
expand
the
it,
same.
we must also get more money to the counties. The matter of corruption should not be the issue. The issue is we get money to the counties, we leave money at the national level, and we deal with the corruption. We cannot just let people misuse money. How can, in 6 months, a county government, they spend 14 billion in travel in 14 months? 6 months. Yeah, we deal with corruption as it is. But the money which should go rightfully to the people should go to the people. And I cannot say because it's going to be stolen, now we can't take it there. I think now we are failing if you look at it that way.
Honorable Baraza.
You know we have confusion. Most of Kenyans don't understand this constitution. The law says that money that counties should receive should not be less than 15%. Meaning there is no problem if we say we are taking 30% or 45% to the counties. We already have this mitigated in the constitution, and we have some of the things that we are saying need to be changed. That it can be changed not necessarily through a referendum. We can change them through a two-thirds majority in the National Assembly. So what we are saying is that we should first sit down, do an audit of the current constitution, identify areas that needs to be changed, find out if we can be able to implement that change through parliament or through a referendum, and then go forward into doing other things. But as we are speaking now, and I even think that the best time to do a referendum is not at this time where we are struggling with our wage bill. We would rather, if we have money to spend on a referendum, let us first pay off the debts that this country has engaged for over a period of time,
but the question,
so that we can lessen the burdens on the taxpayers.
The question, Honorable Baraza, might be then, if we're paying out debts, look at how counties are spending, or even national government. We have more bills on recurrent than development. That means we are stagnant. We are not actually moving in any way.
Those, the constitution is not going to cure lavish expenditures. Funding of priorities that are upside down is not going to cure. It's not going to cure corruption. This, we have the tools to ensure that, and even today morning I was having a discussion with Senator Nyamunga that maybe it's high time we consider that the oversight committees of county assemblies should be chaired by senators, so that they take responsibility in ensuring prudence management of finances within the counties. So, it's not that every problem that this country is going through is as a result of a referendum.
Of the referendum.
Now, what I can add on that, we need the referendum. That one we must say yes to. And then after that, how we do it. That is as number two, in my view. Number one, do we need it? Yes. How is number two?
Is number two.
So the number two, that is what it's talking about. But number one, do we need it? We need it.
And the question is, what does it resolve? What does it solve? Because if what we already have as a constitution is pretty, by many measurements, much better than where we were before, but still we've not been able to action it and enforce it accordingly. How is changing the constitution going to change when we still have the same people in charge of the constitution?
I think we should even make the positions of governors less lucrative, because the way I look at governors, the moment they are elected to governorship, they become small lords. And now they just want to think that the money given to them, it is at their disposal. So those are some of the things that we should,
resolve.
We should resolve some of these issues, put more structures which are very strong, that will look at the Office of the Auditor General. To the best of my knowledge, the structures have been put there. It is a matter of following it. Kenya is very good with research. Kenya is very good with papers, with law, but Kenya is very bad with implementation. So how do we implement? That is where our problem is. And that is maybe where we should put a lot of energy to see that this has been done. How do we make sure it is implemented? And if you fail, what are the...
You see, Michael, we have a big problem in this country. The Constitution gives Kenyans express powers to decide what should be done. And we should therefore have a mechanism of tapping into the intelligence of Kenyans to be able to give us a note on whether we proceed with a referendum or not. Because we are not going to call for a referendum because William Ruto or Raila Odinga or Didmas Barasa or Rose Nyamunga has said we need to have a referendum. The Kenyans themselves must decide whether we need to have a referendum or not.
And that's why the BBI is there.
That's
but
the
you've just said that the BBI
the,
is not there doing
let
anything.
Me tell
so
you,
that's what they're out there talking to Kenyans.
No. The BBI has no legal mandate to think on behalf of Kenyans. Kenyans can think on themselves or through their legally elected leaders. That's the Constitution.
BBI is a neutral body. That is
forget about.
No,
the Constitution.
They are not going to.
The Constitution is explicit that Kenyans can exercise their powers to think directly or through their elected leaders.
Just to add on,
allow her to put her point
BBI
across.
is not going to decide for Kenyans. They are just going to table their findings. Then it is up to Kenyans and the leaders to decide what they do with it. So they are still not taking away any responsibility of the leaders.
Although the concern, Senator, is that with BBI, first of all, the structure, how did BBI come to be? There are some who feel that this is just a creation of maybe two people, the president and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Yeah. So that already leaves Kenyans feeling, are they really pushing for what Kenyans want, or is it
But you know, as they go around, you know, they engage everybody. They engage everybody, even as women senators. Everybody has been involved, allowed to have an input.
Michael, with all the fairness, Raila Odinga has no mandate to represent Kenyans. They never elected him.
They did not elect him, but he has a following. We cannot ignore that. You cannot ignore.
Even Prophet Award has a following. It's not about the following. The Constitution is explicit that Kenyans can think
Raila is a very senior citizen.
Or through elected
leaders. You cannot ignore Raila Odinga.
Read for me in the Constitution that
he is a leader.
A section that gives Raila power.
He is a leader. On behalf of that one you can't run away from.
As much as you may say that it's not in the Constitution, he does have a following. When we look at the elections, it was a very close call between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. So he does have a following.
A big one.
You see, let us read the Constitution. Chapter 1 of the Constitution. The sovereign power belongs to the people
and that
of
is
the Republic of Kenya.
That is what we are doing, going back to the people.
They can choose either to exercise such powers directly by themselves or through their elected leaders.
BBI, they are doing it directly.
Maybe what BBI is doing is what we can make of BBI is that they will inform us on whether now to develop a formal structure to ask Kenyans on whether to have a referendum or not.
That is not their responsibility.
We are not going to adopt the report of BBI and take it to be the wishes of this country, of Kenyan people.
That is a report that we need to wait and see. Whether that is what we think we want, it is still open to a lot of...
I have never seen them in my county.
All right, and let me pose you a little bit. Let me pose you, Honorable Barasa.
I think we should be sober when we are discussing.
Let me give you a moment to just think on that. But let's listen to what Kenyans had to say. This is not BBI. This is just our reporters who went out and about to find out what Kenyans feel and think about the referendum.
Sisi tunaunga rais mkono na tuna support kabisa hiyo katiba tubadilishe. Counties ziwe reduced to a certain level. Sio zaidi lakini to a certain level ambayo itafurahisha Wakenya yote.
Maisha yamekuwa magumu, maisha yamekuwa mwananchi yamekuwa ni mzigo kwake. So tunataka maisha kidogo yawe kutengeneza maisha ni mwananchi wa kawaida awe atafanikiwa pia.
Ningeomba wale wenye wanaipinga waiunge mkono, kwa sababu ile mzigo ambayo Kenya tuko nayo tunataka warekebishe ili itupunguzie mzigo. Tuko na deni mingi, mambo na corruption, rais mwenyewe hawezi kama hatutaunga mkono. Kwa hivyo nawaomba wale wenye wanaipinga tuiunge mkono, kama Wakenya wote tuunge rais mkono, kwa sababu hii ni kitu ya maendeleo. Wale wenye wataki ni wale waisi wenyewe wanatuipia sisi kama Wakenya.
All right, and that's just a few samples of what Kenyans had to say. But let me come back to the panel, and I'll be reading some of your comments as we go along. So keep them coming. The hashtag is KTN Morning Express. And if you listen to the Kenyans that even have been sampled there, Senator, the feeling is that Kenya is not at the right place. And for several reasons. One, corruption has come out. Two is the debt burden that we have. And three, the cost of living. So the question is, how is the referendum going to address that? Shouldn't we first of all deal maybe with that corruption? Because we already have so many institutions in place, EACC. We have all sorts of manner of laws that have been put in place to deal with corruption, but still it seems that it's a problem.
Now, when they are talking of debt burden and they're talking of the high standard of living, the cause is corruption. Because if the monies that we have, and Kenya I think is very well resourced,
absolutely,
we will not be having the two problems. We will be managing our debt. When money is borrowed, it should go to the intended purpose. If a road dam is supposed to be done, the two dams, spending 60 billion, and so far nothing has been done, and 21 billion is already paid out. So those are the things that Kenyans are looking at, and they are saying there's no seriousness here. So what I'm saying is the standard of living and all that is as a result of corruption. And you're saying, can't we deal with corruption first? This is the time I said earlier, that this is the time that we want to fix it once and for all. And we want to look at the laws that we will put and make corrections that they are going to make to be for future and not to be tagged to any individual people. Because the moment we do that, I think we will give Kenya a very good constitution. So we need to fix everything now as far as I'm concerned.
As far as you're concerned. Honorable Didmas Baraza, the question that Kenyans feel that we're going through is those three things, high cost of living, corruption and debt burden. How do we deal with that? Because so far, even with the current constitution, that doesn't seem to have been dealt with, despite the fact that we have very many laws and we have very many institutions that are there specifically to deal with that.
I want to agree with you that those three problems that you've mentioned are not going to be cured by a referendum.
By a referendum.
What is going to cure those problems is civil servants doing what Kenyans pays them to do. And we must come up with a clear roadmap. For example, if it's in the investigations, we must come up with a clear roadmap. NYS is on one. Let's go back to NYS is on one. What were immediate actions that were taken by DCI? How many people went to court so far? How many successful prosecutions have we registered? How much money have we recovered from those suspects back into the exchequer? These are the questions that we need to ask ourselves, and even ask ourselves as to whether DCI and the judiciary needs more than 1 year to complete investigation and the determination by way of prosecution of a case when it's reported to them. These are things which we should ask ourselves, and if you're not getting answers, then some civil servants will begin packing and going home. We need to usher in an era where civil servants are paid their salary, where civil servants are promoted on the basis of the value that they have added to Kenyans. Where after 1 year, if you are the PS for agriculture, if you are the director of agriculture, you are asked questions on what value have you put into the life of the Kenyan people. If you cannot explain it, you pack yourself.
But then that now takes us to the constitution then. Yeah.
And how does the constitution resolve that? Because that's a part where I think we need to fully understand. Because with the institutions we have, with the laws that we have, we still have not been able to make gains in that direction. So how will the constitution resolve that when we still have the same implementers?
Yeah, the constitution, in my view, I think, okay, there are some issues that cannot be corrected by the constitution, but the majority of the issues that we have must be corrected by the constitution because the institutions are there. But why are they not functioning? They are functioning because they are not functioning because they know nothing will happen and they know how they manipulate the system. So we have to make it very expensive for people who break the law. We might make it very expensive and very difficult that you just don't break the law and get away with it.
I think, Michael, let us not lie to Kenyans and confuse to them that a constitution will change. The Kenyan private sector is doing very well because the CEO of these multinationals are hired on the basis of a vision, of an objective that they will achieve within a specific period of time. Failure to achieve, they are shown the door.
All right, let me ask you, Honorable Didmus Baraza. So how do we deal with the current issues that we have? Because so far, you say the constitution is okay, we don't need to have a referendum right now to solve it. Solutions, how do we solve that? What the issues that
the very many problems that we have in this country can be solved through prudent management systems. Management systems that are action-oriented, that are on the basis of a vision of what we want to achieve.
You think they are not in place?
They are in place, but nobody follows them.
So then can you then on behalf of Jubilee Party say that Jubilee has failed to implement those management systems that you're talking about? Because if they're in place and you say that we don't need a referendum, why are we still where we are?
Absolutely. It's because the government, the two levels of government, both national and the county governments, have failed to implement prudent management systems that will, because we know where we want to go as a country. We know that poverty is an issue. We know that employment is an issue. We know that we need money to ensure that our hospital facilities are able to give services to our Kenyan people. But we budget money to buy medicine, but this money is stolen, and we don't take any
So
action.
as a member of parliament whose job is to oversight, to legislate and to represent, what are you doing to ensure that government comes back on track? You're saying that government has failed. You're part of government.
I'm not part of government.
You are.
I am not.
By being in the National Assembly, you are part of the government.
No. Government is the executive, headed by the president. I am part of the legislature, which is another a separate arm of government. We are no longer in the old
When we talk
constitution.
about government, really, what are we talking about? We're talking
The
about
party in the
governance. We're talking about-
government. The party outside.
Government is this group of people that has the responsibility to implement policies. I don't implement policies. I only assist government in approving laws.
But
I
now,
don't implement.
you know, the moment there is an election and one party wins, that party is the government.
No.
And it must make sure that all the three arms of that government is working.
Michael,
And it is
let us
allow
not
Senator to finish. No, allow Senator to finish. Senator, finish your point.
Yeah, what I'm saying, the moment you are given the mandate by the people to lead, like now it is Jubilee in the government, we count you. We hold you to account on every aspect of it. That there is nowhere that the executive will do something and the Jubilee government will tell me I'm an executive, I'm not a legislature. I am not in you are in control of that, and you must make sure that you deliver to the people of Kenya as per the mandate that is given to you.
You know, my good friend is nominated. She seems clueless about the law.
Since she's a lawyer
And
by
then
profession.
you
Let me
cannot,
finish what I'm saying.
you cannot use that language on anybody. That is not acceptable.
Let me finish what I'm saying.
You cannot say that I'm clueless. You
All-
can't say that.
let me say.
No, you have to get out of that.
Let me
It
say-
is not
let me
acceptable.
finish what
That
I
one,
want
no,
to say.
you must not. I can't allow you to do that. I can't be clueless.
You know,
What do you
Michael,
mean I'm
Okay,
clueless?
You know, Michael,
Honorable Baraza.
all members of
You
parliament are
must
the
just,
same.
wait.
just
Honorable
debate,
Baraza.
but don't be abusive. You can't be abusive.
I'm not
This is
abusing
you are abusive because you are telling me I'm clueless.
When you say
what do you
she's
mean?
clueless-
You can be a professor of law. But
No. I have papers that I don't think you have even half of it. What do you mean?
You know what I'm saying.
What is your
Michael.
background? What is
What
your
I'm saying-
background then?
What I'm saying is, Michael,
Ah.
all
not
members
allowed.
of parliaments are equal, regardless of whether we are from
Whether they are
ODM
clueless or not,
from
and according
Jubilee
to you, somebody
or
is
from
clueless.
independent.
No.
Okay. I would really demand that we have respect for each other. And when you say she is clueless, what exactly are you trying to
What I
allude to, or
mean is
what do
that
you mean?
what I mean is that all members of National Assembly are equal in their mandate, even if they are from ODM
So if
or
they're
from
equal,
Jubilee.
are you as
There
clueless
is
as
no
she
MP
is if you're
who is in
saying that
government.
she is clueless?
There is no MP who is in government. The role of the members of the parliament is
Even
in Article 95.
as we vote in parliament, we vote the government and the minority. Even as we vote, We don't vote. This is a minister. Ministers are not in parliament, and you are the one who are responsible for the running of the country.
We don't run government.
You are the one who you
Right.
don't even know. Plus, I'm doing a second.
Funds,
I'm doing a second term.
Oversight.
You know, such people should not even be brought in the
All right,
debate.
Honorable Barasa, what we're trying to get here is a solution. So far, you've not given me a solution as to what needs to be done. The question that I asked you is on behalf of Jubilee government, which you're part of. Are you part of Jubilee government? Are you part of Jubilee?
I'm not part of Jubilee government. I'm part
of Jubilee?
I'm part of Jubilee party that formed government.
Which is now what has formed government. So on behalf of Jubilee, okay, let's remove the word government for your sake. Yeah. On behalf of Jubilee, can you then admit that Jubilee has failed to implement those systems that you're talking about?
Absolutely, I agree. Fully agree.
All right, so would a referendum then not be the solution that we need for us to move to the next step? Because if the constitution that we have now, Jubilee has failed to implement it to the letter, such that now we find ourselves where we are, then it is the responsibility of Jubilee to ensure that we get out of there, which they have failed.
The referendum is not going to assist government put qualified people in positions. Putting qualified people in a position to run this country is a reserve of an individual who has the authority to appoint these people through rigorous campaigns, dictated by meritocracy and competence.
Kenya is
the constitution is not going to solve this kind of
Kenya
things.
is full of very competent people. We have the most educated people in this part of the world. Kenyans are very educated and very competent. The problem we have is lack of commitment to perform. In my view, that's what I think the problem is. But in terms of, as I said earlier, the commitment
is what is lacking.
Because what is lacking is the commitment.
So how do we resolve that? Because that's the thing. That's why I'm saying that now with the referendum or a change of constitution, we still don't deal with lack of commitment. There's some things that you can't legislate. You can't put laws to. So how will the referendum resolve lack of commitment? If we were committed to the constitution as it is right now, we certainly would be very far from where we are as a country.
That is for sure that when it comes to commitment, you don't need the law. I mean, you need the law that puts you in that office. And what I'm saying is the commitment to follow that. So that one we need even to go socially and educate our people in issues of ethics, issues of goodwill. That if you are given a responsibility, you must have the goodwill to perform. And that we can put structures that even as you work in offices, there could be even classrooms so that we learn.
Okay, even matters governance. All right, we'll need to conclude soon. So let me start with you, Honorable Barasa. 3 things that we have agreed as a panel here that we have as a problem, and that is high cost of living, corruption, and the debt wage that we have, the debt burden that we have as a country. In a minute, what do you give as solutions as a sitting member of parliament?
I think the solution will be to ensure that the government is committed to deliver its services to the people. Because today we have a hospital that don't have medicine and nurses. But during budgeting, we have money allocated to buy medicine. So where does this money disappear to? So we must make each and every Kenyan civil servant committed to service delivery and accountable to every single shilling that he or she is given to use to provide service to the Kenyan people. And let us not cheat Kenyans that the constitution referendum is going to solve all our problems. The constitution is not going to force that particular chief officer from county government from prudently managing the resources allocated to his office to benefit the people. So we must rise up as a country and understand that whatever that we do individually by using our offices, it what will make the whole difference. We have enough laws. We have enough laws, and that guides prudent management of the resources under our disposal. And let's just be responsible and take this country forward.
Okay, Senator, your thoughts on what this country needs? You've already mentioned and repeated that a referendum is something that we need, but in the interim, we still have problems.
We need to make our people accountable, and the punishment that goes with it if you don't act within, or if you make a mistake. For example, in the development world, there are some mistakes, statements that if you make, even as a minister, you cannot be in the office the following day. You have to honorably get out of that office and apologize to the nation. So we must go that direction to make sure that if I do this, the repercussion is this. I cannot just sit in the office, do anything as a minister or as a PS, and know that tomorrow I'll still be in that office. You'll take me no impunity. The level of impunity is very high, and we must totally do away with impunity and make sure that we call all our leaders and all the employees of this nation to account. That if I do this, this is it. And nobody needs to tell me get out of the office.
Absolutely.
I cannot be mentioned in corruption. I cannot be under investigations, and I sit pretty in the office and continue that nothing is going wrong, and I still repeat the same mistakes. So we must be held to be accountable, and we must take responsibility as a nation and as
Thank
people.
you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That is nominated Senator Rose Nyamunga and Honorable Didmas Baraza, Member of Parliament for Kimilili, this morning on State of the Nation. So is a referendum going to be the solution that Kenya needs? That still remains out there. And as we continue to wait on BBI to give their report, there are those who feel that BBI really is not representing the views of Kenyans. There are others who feel, based on the fact that it was formed after the handshake, the famous March 9th handshake between Raila Amolo Odinga and the President of this Republic, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, then maybe we wait and hear what Kenyans have to say. Is that the solution? Time will tell. For now, we'll have to take a break right here on Morning Express, but the conversation continues online, and I'll be reading your comments later on. But for now, we take a short break. We will be right back. Today being Thursday, we still have Black and White lined up for you, amongst other things. Do stay with us.